There's a certain kind of irony in our world that really keeps me up at night.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, the poetic stuff like a fire station burning down.
Hmm.
It's the irony of the very tool you install to protect yourself being the exact thing that takes you down.
Ah, the shield becomes the weapon
Yeah.
scenario. It's the ultimate betrayal in cybersecurity.
Exactly. And today we're not talking about some hypothetical. We're doing a deep dive into a supply chain compromise that is, well, it's messy, it's technical, and frankly, it's a little alarming for anyone who blindly trusts their software updates.
We're talking about the eScan antivirus incident. It happened just a few weeks ago on January 20th, 2026.
Yeah.
And this is, it's a textbook case of why that old phrase, trust but verify, is getting so much harder to actually practice.
Okay.
Looking at MicroWorld Technologies, the Indian developers behind eScan,
They're a big player in certain regions.
a very significant player. And on that day, their update mechanism, the very pipe that's meant to deliver immunity, delivered a virus instead.
And let's just be really clear for everyone listening. This wasn't some, sophisticated phishing email where an intern clicked a bad link. This was the infrastructure itself.
Right. Attackers compromised our regional update server. They got inside the wire.
Which is just the nightmare scenario.
Ah.
Because as users, we are trained, we are drilled, really, to hit update the second that notification pops up.
Of course.
We see updates as digital hygiene. You don't question the soap before you wash your hands.
But in this case, the soap was contaminated, and what's really fascinating here is the specific mechanics of the swap. It wasn't just, upload malware. It was a very targeted replacement of a legitimate component.
Okay, so let's get into the weeds on this. The report mentions a specific file, reload.exe.
Correct. Reload.exe. In any normal eScan installation, this is a totally benign, necessary component. What the attackers did was get access to the server configuration and just swap the legitimate file for their malicious version.
Okay, simple switch.
A simple switch, but here is where the technical details get really interesting and a little bit baffling.
You're talking about the digital signature.
I am indeed.
This is the part in the Morphisec report that really made me sit up. The malicious file was signed with an eScan certificate,
It was.
but the signature was invalid. Now, hang on. For anyone not deep in this stuff, normally, if a file has an invalid signature, Windows just throws a fit.
It should.
You get the smart screen filter, you get the mark of the web warning, something. It's like trying to get into a club with an ID that has the corner cut off. How did this thing even execute?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? An invalid signature should trigger all those warnings. Both Windows and even VirusTotal flagged it as invalid.
Why? What was its specific problem?
It was a digest mismatch. So basically, the contents of the file didn't match the math in the signature. The seal was broken.
Right, the seal was broken.
But it executed anyway. And this suggests a few possibilities. One is that because the file was coming through a trusted update channel, the eScan updater itself, it might have been whitelisted.
Yeah, inherited trust.
Exactly. If the updater process is trusted and that trusted process says, hey, run this file, the operating system might not double-check the ID card of the sub-process.
He just waves it through.
It bypasses the usual scrutiny. It's a huge reminder that code signing isn't some magic bullet if the chain of custody before the execution is compromised. And despite that huge red flag, the file was distributed.
But not to all users, right? This wasn't a global blast.
No, and that's very typical of modern supply chain attacks. It was highly targeted. It only affected a specific subset of users who were downloading from that one regional cluster during a very narrow time window.
Which sort of implies the attackers were maybe hunting for specific targets? Or maybe just testing the waters before a bigger rollout.
It's hard to say for sure, but yeah, the sniper shot approach is usually all about stealth. You don't want to alert the global ops center if you're just trying to hit a few specific companies.
Okay, so the user updates, the fake reload.exe, lands on their system. Now, the malware needs to set up shop. This is where it moves into persistence.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the method they used, it felt weirdly nostalgic.
You mean the particular choice of camouflage?
Corel de frag. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't even thought about the company Corel in maybe 20 years.
It's a real blast from the past. So the malware dropped its main payload, a backdoor file called consetlx.exe. But to make sure it runs every single time the computer boots up, it creates a scheduled task.
That's a standard persistence mechanism.
Very standard.
Yeah.
But the name of that task, Corel defrag, is, psychologically clever.
It really is. It's relying on what you could call sysadmin blindness. If I'm an IT person scrolling through 100 scheduled tasks and I see one called suspiciousbackdoor.exe, I'm deleting it immediately.
Of course.
So curl to frag.
You just skip right over it. You assume it's some leftover bloatware from the original machine build or some old utility a user installed years ago. You don't touch it because you don't want to break something.
It's the safety vest principle. You can walk into almost any building if you're wearing a high-vis vest and carrying a ladder.
Corel de Frag is the digital high-vis vest. It just hides in the noise. But while the persistence was subtle, the defense mechanism this malware used was incredibly aggressive.
The host's file modification.
Yes.
This part just blew my mind. Modifying the host's file feels like something malware did back in, 2005. It's such a brute force, old school technique. Why on earth use that now?
Because it just plain works. For anyone who doesn't spend their time in system folders, the host file is basically a local text file that overrides the internet's phone book.
It hardwires the brain.
It does. If you put an entry in there, the computer believes that entry before it even bothers to ask the internet for an address. And what they did was hardwire the victim's machine to believe that eScan's own update servers didn't exist.
So they pointed the URLs like update1.mwti.net.
To localhost. To a dead end. They cut the phone lines.
Oh, wow.
They severed the lifeline. And this is so significant because it prevents the antivirus from calling home.
So even if eScan, the company, realizes, oh no, we've been breached, and they try to push out a cure,
the infected machines can't get it. They're deaf and blind to the fix. It's a scorched earth tactic aimed right at the security software itself. It ensures that the compromised machine stays compromised.
that is just incredibly nasty. It turns the antivirus agent, which is supposed to be the smartest thing on your computer, into a dumb brick.
A dumb brick that is secretly listening to a command and control server. So while eScan was blind, the malware was talking out to the attackers, downloading more payloads, waiting for instruction.
Okay, so let's shift to the user experience here. Because usually this kind of advanced malware tries to be invisible. But if you sever the update connection, aren't you going to get errors?
You are. And that was the gamble the attackers took. The sources say users would have seen errors popping up from the update service. You know, little pop-ups saying update unavailable or connection failed.
But let's be honest about user psychology for a second. If I see an update failed message in my taskbar, my first thought is not, I am under a state-sponsored cyber attack.
No.
My first thought is, ugh, the Wi-Fi is acting up, or their server is probably down. I click dismiss, and I get back to my spreadsheets.
Exactly. It's alert fatigue, and attackers bank on that. Unless the error is persistent and it's actually stopping you from doing your job, you ignore it.
Yeah.
And that buys them time.
And time is everything. Now, speaking of time and timing, we have to talk about the fallout. Because the technical breach is one thing. The public response, that is a whole other level of drama.
It is a mess.
We've got MicroWorld Technologies, so eScan on one side, and then Morphisec, the security research firm, on the other. And they are, let's just say they are not exchanging Christmas cards.
Definitely not. So Morphisec publishes a really detailed technical report. They analyze the breach, and they call it a critical supply chain compromise.
Which is what security firms do. They find a bug, they analyze it, they publish. It's marketing, sure, but it's also a service to the community.
Usually, yes. But MicroWorld came out swinging. They completely disputed the timeline. They claimed they knew about the issue internally long before Morphisec ever published their report.
Ah, the classic, we were already on it, defense.
Right. eScan claims they found the anomaly through their own internal monitoring and also from customer complaints. They say Morphisec only contacted them after they had already started posting warnings on social media and on blogs.
Which, to be fair, is kind of a violation of the unspoken rules, isn't it? The whole concept of responsible disclosure says you give the vendor a heads up, a chance to patch, before you go public.
It is the standard etiquette, but there's always friction there. Researchers want the scoop, you know? They want the credit for the discovery. If a vendor is slow to respond, or if the researcher thinks users are in immediate danger, they might just publish early.
It's a total conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Morphisec wants to look like the hero who found the fire. eScan wants to look like the competent fire department that was already putting it out.
And eScan is taking it a step further. They aren't just annoyed, they are threatening legal action. They've stated they intend to consult lawyers about what they're calling clearly false technical claims in Morphisec's report.
That feels really heavy-handed. Suing the researcher who points out the hole in your wall?
It happens more than you'd think. It changes the narrative from we got hacked to this other company is lying about us. It just muddies the waters.
It really does. It turns a technical postmortem into a he said, she said. But okay, regardless of who saw it first, eScan says they were actively notifying customers. And this part stood out to me. They used WhatsApp.
Yes, they did. Emails, phone calls, the support portal, and WhatsApp.
You know, I actually kind of respect that. If my antivirus vendor is desperate enough to slide into my WhatsApp DMs to tell me to shut down a server, I'm listening. It just screams emergency.
It shows they were scrambling. They knew the update mechanism was broken. Remember the hosts file? So they couldn't just push a notification through their own app. They had to go out of band.
That's a great point. They couldn't use their own megaphone because the attackers had cut the cord.
Precisely. Now, while all this corporate drama is entertaining, we need to zoom out. Because this isn't some isolated oops moment for eScan.
Right. The outline mentions a history here. This isn't their first rodeo with supply chain problems.
No. Just 2 years ago, in 2024, they were hit. And that time, it was North Korean actors.
North Korea. So we're talking state-sponsored.
The GuptiMiner campaign. They exploited the eScan update mechanism to distribute malware that installed backdoors and, get this, crypto miners?
Wait, crypto miners. North Korea hacked an antivirus company to mine Bitcoin.
Among other things, yeah. It sounds almost petty, but it generates revenue for the regime. But more importantly, it also installed these deep, persistent backdoors into corporate networks.
So compare 2024 to 2026 for me. Does this new attack look like a repeat performance?
It looks like a systemic vulnerability. Look, if you get hit in your update mechanism once, you patch it, you harden it. If you get hit in the exact same vector twice in 2 years, that's good.
It suggests the lock on the back door is flimsy, and they just keep changing the padlock instead of actually reinforcing the door frame.
That's a perfect analogy. Supply chains are such juicy targets. If I hack a bank, I hack one bank. If I hack a software vendor like a Sangam, I potentially hack every single company that uses their software. The leverage is just massive.
So we have a recurring problem. How did they fix it this time? Because with that host file modification, you can't just push a patch.
No, the remediation had to be manual and it had to be drastic. First, on their server side, MicroWorld went full scorched earth. They isolated the compromised infrastructure and they rebuilt it completely from scratch.
Nuke it from orbit. The only way to be sure.
Effectively, changed all the credentials, built brand new servers. But for the clients, for the infected users, they had to release a special standalone removal tool.
Because the standard agent was basically lobotomized.
Right. This tool had to physically go in, scrub the malicious files, delete that Corel defrag scheduled task, and, this is the crucial part, unlock the host's file so the computer could talk to the internet again.
I'm guessing a reboot was mandatory.
Oh, absolutely. When you're dealing with malware that can be memory resident and make kernel-level changes, you have to flush the entire system.
It's just so messy. I mean, think about the IT admins who had to run this tool on potentially hundreds of machines manually because their central management console was probably cut off too.
It's a massive loss of productivity and a massive loss of trust.
That word trust, it just keeps coming up. We pay these vendors to be the experts. We pay them to be paranoid so that we don't have to be.
And yet in this ecosystem, that very trust becomes a vulnerability.
Let's pull on that thread as we wrap this up, because this isn't just about eScan. This could be any software we use. We live in a world of set-it-and-forget-it automatic updates.
We do, and this incident really proves that the set-it-and-forget-it mindset is dangerous.
But what's the alternative? I can't personally audit the source code of every Windows update or every Adobe patch. I have to trust someone.
You do, but you can verify, you can monitor. The organizations that probably caught this early had network monitoring in place that flagged it and said, hey, why is our antivirus software suddenly trying to talk to this unknown IP address?
Or why is the antivirus updater failing over and over again?
Exactly. So detection isn't just about installing an antivirus. It's about watching the watchmen.
You need a layered defense.
Precisely. If your antivirus fails, your network firewall should hopefully catch the beacon. If the firewall misses it, your endpoint detection logs should catch the weird scheduled task being created.
It's exhausting, isn't it?
It is. But that is the reality of the landscape we're in.
I want to leave our listeners with one last thought that's been nagging me since I read through these reports. We spend so much time telling people don't click suspicious links and don't download attachments from strangers.
Right. The user is the weakest link. We hear it all the time.
But the really scary truth of this eScan story is that the victims did everything right. They bought the security software, they enabled automatic updates, they followed all the best practices. And that very compliance was exactly what the attacker used to get them.
That is the terrifying part.
If doing the right thing gets you hacked, what is the new rulebook? Is there even such a thing as zero trust when it comes to the very tools that are supposed to create trust in the first place?
That's the question every CISO is asking themselves this week, and I don't think we have a comfortable answer for that yet.
On that cheery note, check your logs, people. And maybe take a second look at that Corel software you haven't used since the 90s.
And verify your updates.
Thanks for this deep dive. We'll see you on the next one. Stay safe out there.